Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Private Anne Collyshaw. We warmly welcome the family of Private Charles Allen Cregan, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned in Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Charles Allen Cregan. Charles Cregan was born in 1889, the youngest child born to Arthur and Martha Cregan of Bungendore in New South Wales. Cregan's mother died in 1893, leaving his father to raise Charles and his older brother Alfred at a very young age. After school, Cregan worked as a furnace hand and lived in the inner west suburbs of Sydney. In May 1912, he married Ellen Rebecca Wallace in Glebe. The couple had 2 children together, Olive and Maud. Cregan enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 15th of September 1915, around the same time as his older brother Alfred. While the brothers both served for Australia in the 1st Infantry Battalion, due to different training schedules, they never served in the unit at the same time. Charles Cregan sailed from Sydney in June 1916 aboard the transport ship Canberra, and after a brief period of further training in England, crossed the English Channel to join the 1st Battalion in the fields of France and Belgium. He was one of 32 reinforcements to join the 1st Battalion on the 3rd of October 1916, when it occupied a series of trenches in the southern sector of Ypres, salient in Belgium. The war diary of his unit records that on that day of his arrival, the 1st Battalion came under heavy German high-explosive artillery attack before spending the rest of the day repairing the damaged trenches and conducting retaliatory fire on German positions. A few weeks after arriving in Belgium, Cregan transferred with the rest of his unit south of France, where they occupied trenches east of Amiens. On the night of the 4th of November 1916, Cregan and the 1st Battalion took part in an attack on German lines near Fleur, to the north of the Somme River. In wet, cold and muddy conditions, companies of the 1st Battalion moved into position while Allied artillery carried out a bombardment of the German lines. At the same time, the Germans conducted their own artillery attack on the Australian positions, making getting into position difficult. Cregan was in Bravo Company, which served in support of the attack. The men waited to advance, laying in shell holes behind the main start line. And shortly after midnight, on the 5th of November, 2 Australian companies of the 1st Battalion leaped into no man's land to attack the German trenches. Tired from moving through the thick mud, the men came close to the German lines, but were pushed back by rifle, machine gun and grenade fire. On returning to their trenches, the Australian companies reassembled and ordered to make another attack. This time, Cregan's Bravo Company was included. This second attack, launched at 1:04 a.m, was again met by heavy fire, and the men were forced to retire, suffering heavy casualties. Cregan was last seen as Bravo Company prepared to take part in the second attack. As he waited at his start line, a German shell burst directly in front of him, killing him instantly. Allen Cregan had been at the front for over 1 month, and he was 27 years old. His grieving wife, left with 2 young daughters, originally heard that her husband was reported missing in action. She wrote to military authorities in later months, and she held out hope that maybe one day he would be found alive, adding that he was a good husband and a good father to his children. It was not until a year after the battle that she received confirmation that he had been declared killed in action. In the chaos of the fighting that occurred in the years after his death, his place of burial was lost, and his name is now recorded on the Villers-Bretonneux Memorial in France, which lists the names of over 10,700 Australians who served on the Western Front who have no known grave. Private Charles Allen Cregan's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is one, but many of the stories and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Charles Allen Cregan, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrubber Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.